So welcome to Dictate the Tempo. This is episode 3 as we continue the delayed wait to Football Manager 2025. But while we are waiting, we are still talking and playing Football Manager 2024. We are living in the past and we are loving it. I mean, loving it's a stretch, but we are still enjoying our saves while we are waiting for the belated release of FM25. Now, I do want to start by saying you will have noticed that I didn't say we are affiliated or linked or partnered with DictateTheGame.com. Unfortunately, we have gone our separate ways. We managed to make it through 2 podcasts before they contacted us and asked if we could very nicely not be linked anymore because we are too edgy. I think, Colin, you were on the last podcast and you are one edgy dude.
I guess so. I don't know. I feel like we asked the questions that everybody's thinking, but
it
happens.
Did you walk around in your supermarket, for example, just thinking I am edgy?
No.
Oh, you disappoint me. I don't want to claim I did.
Part of me is edgy.
Yeah. Well, we brought back Ryan tonight to try to keep us on tight reins and keep us under control. So thank you for joining us tonight, Ryan.
It's good to be back. I have internet now. It works.
Good job, you.
I'm back to maintain non-biased. Sit on the fence, as we did back in the day.
Pathetic. But yeah, congratulations on having internet again. As me and Colin don't live in England, we've continued to have internet where you just decided not to have it anymore. So good job, you.
I was moving house.
Excuses. So we have some basic topics tonight. We're going to be talking about our saves. We're going to be discussing a plan Colin potentially had and what I had for FM25 and our initial thinking behind it and get the audience's feedback and see what you guys all think about it. And we're also going to be discussing how Colin has been struggling on the scouting front. We're going to start by discussing what we are currently up with. We're going to go to Ryan first to get out the way the Manchester loving, because I assume he's going to talk about how he's trying to recreate Ruben Amorim's tactical masterpiece and how much of a man crush he has on this guy now, because we all know Ryan loves Manchester United, because there's always a glory supporter in every group. So come on, Ryan, tell us how your save has been going.
It's going well. I am in, I can't even say the year because I'm currently in transfer deadline day 2026. I haven't done transfers, like I said on our first podcast with you when we returned. So I've got a lot of the youngsters coming through in the first team, like Tyler Fletcher, Jaden Camerson, Malachi Sharp, Harry Amas is in there, who some people may have heard of. The under-21s are actually playing today. I think they're losing to Huddersfield at the moment, so they're not doing too well. I am trying to recreate Almiron's tactic with the back 3, but I think people might be playing a back 3 because, as we will probably discuss later on, there is a sincere lack of good fullbacks on the game as you seem to go further into the years. Haven't won the league yet. Can't seem to tip Man City, but that'll probably be because the youth academy is not great. I need to take a few more years to improve the youth academy, but I have cleared out some staff, got some new staff in, and just trying to bring through some of the youngsters and do what I can by not being tempted to buy anybody, because that will probably be the temptation with most Man United saves, just to try and bring somebody in. But I want to try and recreate the old Man United way and bring through some of the youth, maybe create my own, I don't know, class of 2024. It might be 2050 by the time I actually get a good enough team on this save.
Well, I mean, you have time. You can probably get to 2050 before FM25 comes out. I mean, the positive for going with the youth and not just signing players is you can't do worse than they've done in real life. I guess what Colin was begging me to ask, and we were mind reading each other for this question. Have you sold Anthony?
Oh, I mean, he was. Let me have a look. Shall we have a look at my transfer history?
This would be
For
great.
more
if it
than a bag of balls and water bottles.
Let's go back.
Ryan's making us hang on an audio podcast. Visually, it's probably going through Football Manager, but you can't see that, so just bear with us. Go make cup tea. Go make cup tea.
So first season, I got rid of Johnny Evans. Went to Marseille in weird times, but
that kind of makes sense when you think of the likes of Aubameyang and stuff have gone to Marseille, Greenwood because no one else wanted him. So it kind of makes sense that Evans went to a club like that.
Yeah, Victor Lindelof I sold to West Ham for 17.5 million. Casemiro, I sold him to PSG. Harry Maguire sold him to Tottenham. Christian Eriksen went to Leicester. And Jadon Sancho, I sent him on loan to Tottenham.
I can see all of them.
The season after that, I got rid of Tyrone Malacia because obviously he only literally just returned today to play for the Under-21s and played 45 minutes and has come off. Hopefully he's not injured and disappears for another year and a half or however long he's been out. And I believe that might be it. Have I got rid of Anthony? Oh, here we are. No, third season. I think I tried to get rid of Anthony. Anthony has gone on loan to Benfica.
Can you accept that, Colin? Is loaning him in the third season to Benfica how you would have handled the Anthony situation at Manchester United?
I'd have just paid whatever it would have cost to send him just to send him into the free marketplace, because I'm not sure keeping him there's worth whatever it's going to cost. Although I will have to say that Maguire going to Tottenham feels like comically perfect.
I think the challenge for you now, Maguire going and Sancho, the challenge for you now, Ryan, is this podcast goes out visually on YouTube on a Thursday, okay? Mm-hmm. I want you before Thursday to load up a new Football Manager save, go to Anthony and try to terminate his contract and see how much it would cost to do that. Then comment below the video so people watching this can go into the comments and see your comment to see how much it would cost to do Colin's idea of just kicking him to the curb. Just kick him out. Nobody wants him. Nobody wants him. Let him go and spin around on the ball somewhere else. So, Colin, you are at True Rose City. You are as far west as you can be in England in the Football League at the minute, or the Football Pyramid. I mean, there's some other teams, but obviously in terms of playable. How is it going?
Yeah, you're running out of England. Actually pretty good. So we are in season 4, in the summer window. So kind of late July right now, preparing for our first season in League 2. So we talked the last time we had one season and up from the National League South up to the National League. We ended up spending 2 seasons in the National League. The first one, I'd say we probably overplayed where we probably would have ended up, and then ran into a bit of a squad depth fitness issue and kind of tailed off pretty hard at the end of the season as we just had a lot of games and not a lot of players to put out there. So ended up finishing 15th at the end when all the shouting was over in the end of season 1, but safe. We were 15 or so points, 15, 16 points clear. So no harm, no foul, just a little frustrating at the end. So season 3 ultimately, but the second season in the National League was really more about adding some depth and just a couple of key replacements. Did a lot more in terms of squad rotation, some improved training management, and cruised into the playoffs. We were the last team in the playoffs, but there comfortably, and managed to hit on a really rich vein of form. Ended up cruising through the 3 rounds of the playoffs, and now we're in League Two. So I feel a little more comfortable now because things are, the caliber starting to improve a little bit, but mostly the relegation floor is significantly smaller with only 2 teams going down. So gives me a little bit more room to maneuver and build a team, because I suspect that I'm going to be in League Two for at least 2, probably 3 seasons before we can kind of get enough inertia to push our way up to the next level. And then, as we were talking earlier, League One, I would agree, I think is the place where the English pyramid starts to get serious. So we'll see what happens there.
I always remember, if we're going back years, when I got to League One, I did go up to the Championship, back down to League One, up to the Championship, back down to League One. So you do have them difficult steps up, and it's just about making sure you are building long term. So if you do go up to League One quicker than maybe you expected, relegation isn't the end of the world if you've put together a decent squad for the long term and not just a bunch of aging old boys who you need to replace every season or 2. Sticking with you then, Colin, we were discussing after the last podcast some save ideas we wanted to consider going into FM25, and you mentioned Romania.
Yes.
Why?
It's a good question. It's a place I've always been sort of intrigued, because they've always produced interesting sleeper teams in a bunch of saves I've had over the last few years, that you'll see Romanian sides in the continental competitions sort of peaking out and going on some pretty impressive runs. And I've always had I guess, higher than, I tend to scout there higher than other locations, especially for offensive talent. I have found, at least in previous iterations, they have a habit of producing some really, really nice strikers and wingers. So my thought was, okay, maybe it's time to immerse a little bit into their footballing universe. And my idea coupling with that is to do kind of a Athletic Bilbao style save, and really be a highly youth focused, all bringing through, Romanian team, bringing Romanian players through the club, and building a European powerhouse kind of that way. Now, I don't know a tremendous amount about the league. I mean, I know kind of the big teams, as it were, in it, but not enough. So I'm kind of using it as an opportunity to learn some more about the Romanian footballing pyramid.
I think when we spoke about this offline, I said to you how I'd done a save over Christmas time with Steaua Bucharest. Now, obviously, that club had a split years ago, and you now have, I think it's FCSB, who are in the top flight.
Yeah.
And then I took charge of what some people will claim, the original team, who are now in the second tier. And I have to say, I loved it. I only had a couple of years, and then I kind of got back into putting YouTube content out there, so I just shelved that save. But they pumped out some youth products. They really did. And obviously, they are the only former European champion not playing in the top flight. Winning the Champions League, obviously, back in the day, or whatever, it was the European Cup, and now now playing in the second tier. It's just a fascinating story to try to take them back to the top, overtake the Phoenix Club, or whatever you want to call it. Let's not get into the nitty-gritty of that club split, because I don't think any of us know the details enough to claim who is who and who is right and who is wrong. But I think it's an interesting nation, and like you say, Colin, whenever my scouts are off on Eastern European journeys, they always come back with some very decent talent from Romania. So I think it would be an interesting place to go to and experience, and give a give a bit of your time to, I guess you could say.
Yeah, no, I'm really, really intrigued by it, and as you said, same where I've seen a lot of, especially really strong strikers, coming out. So yeah, it's interesting. If we have, I think, obviously the Stal Bucharest is a really interesting storyline. I have to dig in just to kind of see what are, as I said, I don't know much. I mean, I know, FCFB, Club Cluj, a couple of the, kind of bigger ones that sort of lurk around. But I'm interested just to dive in, understand a little bit more about what their footballing landscape looks like, see if there are some bigger youth oriented type clubs, something like that, something like like Le Havre from years ago, where like they were pumping out, tons and tons and tons of French talent, stuff like that, clubs like that to just kind of get a little bit of an intriguing starting storyline, and as you said, dive in and put the time in and see where it goes.
I think it's fascinating as well that you can go down to the third tier as well on the vanilla game. Not many nations have that, especially such a smaller nation as well. But I would recommend then you just go onto YouTube, don't you? Just type Romania football documentary. And there's so many on there. I know I've seen one about Cluj before. I'd seen one about a team who, I can't remember who it was, but how the club had gone through turmoil and a bad owner and stuff. I've seen a few over my time. I do like to, when I've got spare time playing Football Manager, get on the other monitor and just put on a random football documentary. So in my time, I've seen a few from Romania, and they are fascinating to listen to. Ryan, have you ever tickled the leagues of Romania?
I don't think I've done Romania. I know my save from way back when you recommended that I don't give up on when I started at Coventry and I wanted to take them to big heights, and then I got sacked. I ended up in Serbia, and that was an interesting. I think I spent 2 seasons there. That was a nice nation to manage, and they're another nation that they produce some very good players that come through their usual top clubs, and then they obviously end up in the topper, well, I suppose better quality clubs, but more well-known clubs in Europe and around the world. I've touched on Norway, where I've tried to manage BX Crime, and then Viking, and who's the team? The team who play in yellow.
Go on,
the one where you used to live.
Bird of Glimt?
No. The one we went to see on play.
Who did we go and watch? Now you're questioning.
You used to live there.
Oh, Egerson. I live there now.
Egerson.
We play yellow and black, not yellow.
Yeah, we've still got yellow.
Now you just revealed to everyone where I live.
It's a big enough place.
Now.
They're still going to find you.
Stalkers at my window. Autographs later, people. I'm doing a podcast. Calm yourselves down. So Ryan's never managed in Romania, but don't worry. He did say he has been to Serbia before. And so it's not the same. It's not the same nation or anything. But as far as Ryan's concerned, you're all in Eastern Europe, so
it's the same continent.
Brilliant. Colin, you've managed in Brazil, haven't you?
Said the same thing for you.
Yeah. You've been
not the same continent.
Yeah, you've been in Brazil before managing Colin. So could you tell me about the Bolivian league, please? It's the same continent.
It's a lot like it's the same continent. It's a lot like Brazil, just not.
I've managed in Brazil as well.
Here we go. He got lost on his way back to Manchester United.
Who were you managing when you were in Brazil?
I wanted to try and do, but you can't really do it on Foot Manager because they don't really link very well. The Red Bull clubs.
I do remember that.
I started off at Red Bull. I think was it Bragantino? Yes. I started off there. And I wanted to try and jump between, but FM doesn't link the Red Bull clubs up very well.
They're struggling this year as well. I have seen. I think the one place outside the automatic drop or something calling at the minute. My knowledge of Brazilian football literally is I saw some picture the other day and I saw they were struggling. So,
yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of. I would say the Brazilian league is, they're actually in the relegation slot right now.
Okay,
by a point. It's a fascinating league. It's actually really, really, really good. I think to the European eye, I would say it's probably not as clean and flowing a game as you're used to, generally speaking. It's a little more stop-start generally. I mean, it falls very much into what I would say is a North-South American trait in terms of a much more physical game. Obviously, Brazil is a, even across the domestic league is a really good technical league, but very physical. It's a lot of fun to watch. It's crazy honking tackles that barely produce yellow cards, but some great teams, great sides. If you get a chance to dig in and watch any or highlights of any, it really is a good league.
I mean, I did watch a highlight this week. I watched Marcelo refuse to come on the pitch. So, I mean...
And get fired all in one day.
And get fired, yeah. Mutually agreed to leave, by the way, Colin, the statement said.
Yeah.
He wasn't fired, they agreed on it. Sure.
If you want to see, if you want to see, kind of capture the intensity of South American football in general, if you go, I think it was last week, maybe it was the week before, fairly recently, the first leg of the semifinal of the Copa Libertadores between Atlético Mineiro, which is big Brazil side. Rivals to my favorite side in Brazil that I managed there, Cruzeiro, and River Plate played. And the stadium before the game, you can find it all over social media. It was absolutely insane.
Seen it. It looks crazy.
Yeah. That's part of what makes South American football so awesome.
I wonder how long they had to wait before they could kick off.
I'm sure it was a while.
It just looked mad. The other discussion then we were having was Vaduz, or Vaduz, I'm guessing it's pronounced. I'm not Swiss or German or Liechtensteinian, whatever the language you speak there. Is it Swiss in Liechtenstein? We should know this. I mean, Ryan should know this. He knew the topics.
Let's see. We'll ask Google.
He tells us about his... Ryan always shows off by the research he's done. Is it German?
Official language is German, yeah.
Okay. I know in Switzerland they kind of split, don't they, as well, German and
Italian and French.
Yeah, so... But, we were discussing this. So they are the only nation in Liechtenstein who are playable. Liechtenstein, they do have a league in Liechtenstein, but it's not available to be even used in Football Manager, even using the edit. I think with the editing, you can probably get going, but they don't gain any slots in European qualification with the league. Now, from what I understand, technically, it's through the Cup. The winner of the Cup qualifies for European qualification, but Vaduz, who play in the Swiss league, basically get it year after year. And they're currently in the second tier in Switzerland. They were in the top flight. And their under-21 side is the national team's under-21 side, which I find fascinating, by the way. And every single year, you are in the Conference League. So as well as competing in the second tier of Swiss football, you have European football. Qualifying, you've got to qualify, so maybe you might have a few years where you drop out in qualifying if you come up against a big side, like my Boa Vista team. I don't want to praise them too much. But I think it could be a fascinating journey because if you come in third place in the Swiss League, that is a Europa League qualifying position. You are ineligible to qualify for the Europa League. You can only get the Europa League by winning the Conference League. The winner of the Conference League automatically qualifies for the Europa League. If you win the Swiss League, you are ineligible to qualify for the Champions League. That spot will go to second place or third place, whatever. So the only way to qualify for the Champions League is by winning the Europa League. So thus, you must, went into Norwegian language for a second. You must win the Conference League one season. Then the following season, you must then win the Europa League to then qualify yourself for the Champions League, which you then must win. Otherwise, you go all the way back to the start. So you have to win European competitions 3 years in a row to win the Champions League with Vaduz. And I find that quite possibly one of the hardest challenges, Colin, I've ever read about, looked at, thought about, and the more I think about it, the more it interests me for a save idea to fail at for FM25.
I'm pretty sure it has to be the hardest single team save in the FM ecosystem, because I think you're right. Like, to go on a 3 consecutive season run like that is sort of mind bending. I'd be in, one, good luck. I can't wait to follow along. Hopefully you don't get sacked too soon.
No need for that.
I would be absolutely fascinated as you get into it to see how recruitment and all that really works, because there's one, you're playing in a how much work do you need to do to elevate the Swiss league up the pyramid to attract the kinds of players to play domestically for you, to put you in a position to play at the level that you need to play to even make a run at that? It's almost a little like half building somebody else's nation for a while to then get good enough to actually go and try and get after the save. So it's absolutely fascinating. I agree. It's easily got to be one of the hardest single club saves. I'm not sure I've ever heard of anybody even taking it on, or else actually doing it.
I've looked online on Reddit. I think it was where I saw it. Someone completed it, but this is one of these situations where when you are reading the article, the post where someone is discussing how they've done it, you don't quite believe them. It's one of them situations. So I would like to see if someone's done it, then fair play to them. I did also see that somebody found a way that the top, you get points, coefficient points. The top 2 nations get an extra spot in Europe. So from what I saw, somebody qualified for the Champions League a year by getting that extra spot. Now, for me, I would say the only way I would class it as you've completed is if you do it Conference League, Europa League, Champions League. Because I just think to myself, would I, or would you, the listener, or would you, Colin, you, Ryan, we'll go to you, Ryan, on this, would you ever be able to top or achieve anything remotely as impressive as that feat if you can go Conference League, Europa League, Champions League in 3 successive seasons with a team from Liechtenstein whilst dominating the Swiss League?
Successive seasons would be that's a very impressive feat. And personally, I don't think I could. I've just actually looked at Vaduz on my own save, and they have 1, 2, 3, 5 real players. This is in 2026, and the rest are just those greyed out regens, or whatever Sports Interactive want to call them, new gens. Always going to be a regen for me.
I think Colin's thinking this is me and Colin being telepathic again, Ryan. But as people will learn over the coming months, if Ryan ever turns his phone off vibrate, Ryan lives at Manchester United on Football Manager, so the fact that he has greyed out players in the second league of Swiss doesn't shock me, because he probably doesn't have the league active.
Excuse me, yes I do.
So, no, you don't, Ryan. Send me a screenshot. After this, send me a screenshot of the league table. Until I see the league table, I will not apologise.
I will send you a screenshot right now.
Send me now. Still online, people. Go and check on that cup of tea I told you to make earlier in the podcast. Where you sending me it? On here or on... See, we win. Ryan can't multitask, so he can't talk just while he's fixing the screenshot.
Can't even figure out how
But
to
to
do a
ultimately
screenshot.
answer your question... To ultimately answer your question, I would have to say if I pulled that save off, and admittedly, there's a not small part of my brain thinking about it now. It feels almost like you've got to hang it up at that point. Like what's the point anymore?
What's the point? What's the point? I quit. FM26 is going to be me watching other people play, because at that point I am the greatest ever. I think I'm
pretty high up there.
Because my initial plan for FM26 was to go back to England. I've not done England on my channel. The last time I managed in England was on my old channel. So here we go. Let me load it up. Yes, Ryan, but I said the second tier, not the top tier. That does aren't in that league.
I'll get you the second tier as well.
Ryan, send us a screenshot for people listening, and it wasn't even the league that does are in. What a great start that was. What was I saying? See, it's gone to turmoil. It's all gone to turmoil. Yeah, my plan was to go back to England and take control of Scarborough Athletic. A local side to one of my friends, and I thought, you know what, a rise through the leagues with them would be fun, but with the delay to FM25, I'm just a bit scared that FM26 does come out in November, and I just don't have them 40 seasons I want with that type of save. So I think the only other issue I've got is the save like that does, is it really going to run how I hope it would? I can also confirm that Ryan does have the league active, so I would like to publicly apologise to Ryan. But then players are probably not greyed out. He's probably just not cleaned his glasses. Fair play, but why are they all greyed out then? That makes no sense, Colin, does it? Like, it should... Ryan, when you started your save, did you click add players to playable leagues?
No, I don't.
That's the most Manchester United managing thing I've ever heard, Colin.
I'd like it to be realistic. Why would I want to add random players to random clubs?
Because when you take over clubs,
you
Ryan,
never know.
Thank you, Colin. When you take over clubs, Ryan, that are not in the top division in the world, sometimes you don't have the player. And maybe, going on to the next topic, Colin, you need a fullback. Tell us what you want to discuss. This is the final topic of this podcast, Colin. Tell me what you want to discuss and get it off your chest.
So we were talking. I forget how it popped up. We were having a chat in Discord amongst some other players and what they were doing. And one of the things I've noticed as I've been trying to put together my team for League 2 is how just dreadfully difficult it is to find fullbacks that fit the system that I want to play. Because on some level, like, you can find players, that's not as big I guess I wouldn't say that's as big an issue, but it's finding the right players without adjusting my system. Because now I'm at a point where, like, my system is a bit my system, and I want to pull players in to fit my system as opposed to morphing it around them. And I've really just been struggling to get out and find the right, find players. I'm struggling to find fullbacks that aren't just trash to begin with. but then finding the ones I'm looking for is seemingly even harder these days. So I was curious, from a methodology approach, what you guys have been doing, since it's been so long since we've had this kind of a conversation of how do you scout and identify players for your teams and your systems.
Well,
especially hard to find ones.
Firstly, I love the Tony Pulis argument of this is my system, screw you guys. I'm finding people for my system who want to play in this system, and if you can't play in this system, I refuse to change for anyone.
Damn right.
I guess I have seen a large problem with fullbacks in terms of many fullbacks in Football Manager don't know how to dribble. Many fullbacks don't have a first touch. Many fullbacks can't pass a ball. I have seen multiple fullbacks who are quite good defensively but can't get forward, so more of a no-nonsense fullback than a wing-back style. For me, I've always gone along the line of, okay, what type of club am I? So if I am let's say we're discussing a 20 league team. If my team is expected 10th or below, I will always say, okay, if I'm playing a back four, I want my fullbacks firstly to be defenders. So if in the first transfer window I can't find wing backs, I will more than happily stick a proper centre back at left back, as long as he has physical attributes of stamina, pace, acceleration, and balance and agility, because I want them to be able to turn. They're always defending on that half turn. They're always looking to chase the winger. So I want to be able to make sure they are physically capable. Then technically, I'm just looking for fullbacks who can head, tackle, and mark. If I am a team who is expected to come 9th or above, then quite a lot of the time at the minute, Colin, especially in FN24, a lot of my fullbacks will naturally probably be wingers. And they might only have 8 or 9 for tackling, 8 or 9 for heading, 8 or 9 for marking. But they are super quick, super good with dribbling, crossing, passing. And I'm playing with inverted wingers in front of them, so then they can overlap, get forward. And then I'm playing with a anchor or Bowen midfield in the middle who makes up that third defender, for example, when we have the ball. Because fullbacks, I do think, are an issue in FN24. I don't know how you found it, Ryan, with your super club.
My super club. You got to bear in mind that I did start with a back four, and then I've sort of started using back three formations purely because of this fullback issue that you do get as you go further into saves. I do find that you can get more players that can be wing backs, or you can retrain people at least to be wing backs, because you can just train your wingers to be wing backs more. Fullback is definitely an issue on this version of Football Manager, and I think probably going back a few other Football Managers as well, you just can't seem to get good ones that link up with what you would think as a modern fullback that can dribble, that can pass, that can actually cross a ball. It never happens.
What would you class as a modern... What player would you say is a modern fullback?
Modern...
To paint the picture of what you are saying in terms of it's a struggle to find them fullbacks.
A modern type of fullback if we're looking at the Pep type of modern fullback, Pep plays those inverted ones where, if you look at what he's done with, I'm probably going to murder his name, Josko, is it Gvardiol?
Gvardiol, yeah.
Yeah, Gvardiol. What he mean? He, on previous Football Managers, was a centre-back. He's turned him into a left-back that sometimes comes inside, sometimes you find him way out wide.
Here's a
But
question for you then. And Colin, I guess we will put it to you because it's your team you're trying to improve. Would you consider playing a left-footed centre-back at left-back, for example, as a inverted full-back on defend, okay? This is an actual thing which I used this idea with Egerson for a couple of seasons in terms of if we had a few injuries in positions, and it did work. And I had a central midfielder stroke wide man, so someone who can play on the wing but is more of a central midfielder, good on the ball, technically very gifted. I would play it right back as a attacking wing back. So when we had the ball, he was basically in midfield. Or you could also play as an inverted fullback, so then he's going into that defensive midfield area. And when you have the ball, you are then playing with the back three of your left back and the two centre backs. And your right back is then either becoming a winger, if he's a wing back on attack, which I was using at the time because my wide man was cutting inside. Or you could go inverted full back on attack, which would then mean they would basically become a central midfielder when you have the ball. Is that something you feel you could use, or is it something you feel your team would maybe not implement correctly and it could maybe even cost you points?
Oh, I definitely think the latter is true. We're not. I don't got a field full of geniuses playing. Well, so I guess I'm not sure is probably the best answer I can give you. So tactically, the way I'm set up, so it's a 4-4-2. What I'm looking for out of the back, so my fullbacks are more traditional attacking fullbacks, and I do look for the overlap. So what I'm trying to create is really fast transitions that enable my wide midfielders to exploit the channel and create quick overloads in the opposition final third. So I guess where I get myself into a bind is I'm looking for technically skilled fullbacks on the ball that can cross well, can move the ball. So the dribbling is definitely a significant problem, but I guess almost repurposed sort of wide playmakers becomes viable, although that's another kind of niche guy to find. The only other part that gets a little problematic, and typically where I'm finding it is to what you said, is you can either find really good defensive guys that don't know what to do with the ball other than get it out of there, or really gifted offensive players who have no idea how to play defense. And my system sort of really, really demands that the fullback is a good two-way player, is really a good two-way player, and that's where I'm falling down. And then, kind of the question I'm wrangling with a little bit right now is, can the system work if I have to overvalue one or the other? And I've done some sideline experiments, and unfortunately, overvaluing offense gets me in trouble. So, kind of the maybe that I kind of that I gave you as an answer is, when we get the ball and we start to transition into the attack, right, everything moves forward fairly quickly. So wingers move, my wide midfielders move up into the channels. I've got, my top two, so my deep line forward kind of moves back to the top of the box area. My primary striker is, harassing the goalkeeper, trying to split the center backs to get in for a goal scoring opportunity, and the fullbacks are pushing up for crossing, kind of leaving me, and then I've got a deep line playmaker sitting in that central midfield, and the ball winning midfielder. So I've ebbed back and forth, and I guess I'm decided as a second question or second thought is ball winning midfielder or box to box is my other midfielder. If I do the ball winning midfielder, he drops back into kind of a back three with the center backs. If I put him as box to box, I end up a bit exposed with just a pair of center backs back there, but I get it's offensively very proficient because I have a ton of overload and a ton of pressure coming into the opposition box. But if I get caught, it can get me into a lot of trouble.
I think it definitely comes down to how quickly you are transitioning and getting that ball forward, because another option you can be looking at if your fullbacks don't have that ability going forward is to just play a flat four of no-nonsense players so your fullbacks don't go forward. But then your issue is if your wingers are on the attacking role, the gap between the wingers and the fullbacks is going to be huge. And it's just going to cause you issues again and again. So then you need to drop them onto support, which then would help a box-to-box get forward because he would fill in that gap. But like you said, you are pressing the opposition and you are transitioning very quickly. Now, you said you have overlap on. Now, how does overlap work? Like, are they even getting forward quick enough if you are trying to if you're getting the ball forward as quickly as you can? How many times are you in the box and your fullbacks are not actually there yet? Then you lose the ball and your fullbacks are kind of in no man's land at that point.
Yeah, so the overlap instruction that I'm using is really more about a mentality push to push their mentality into attacking. It's an interesting question because I haven't looked at it enough, and I may need to do some experiments. To your point, is I'm getting a very aggressive mentality out of them. I mean, they're basically the fullbacks basically live in an attacking mentality. So they're very, very progressively looking to push the ball forward, looking to take risk. And I really use that instruction to up the risk level that they're looking to take. But the side effect of it, and you make a good point, is does it push them to also keep going forward, which may leave us exposed. So I may run some experiments on another secondary sort of shadow save to see if that helps.
Another thing you could maybe look at, if you are playing quite direct football with your two up top, then I always think, okay, if I lose the ball with my pass, who is behind the ball? Who is there to defend? If you are going almost route one to your striker, then your next line of defence is your midfield. So you might as well then just say to your fullbacks, look, just stay back. These guys are going to press. These guys are going to win the ball back. My back four, just stay back. Now, if the gap is too big between defence and midfield, another option, if you are playing without a ball-in midfielder, if you are playing the box-to-box, is to set both of your fullbacks to inverted fullbacks. So when you are attacking, they are supporting, but they are supporting defensive midfield, which then pushes your central midfielders up. They come into that defensive midfield. They say to your central midfielders, we've got this space, you push forward a little bit. So they press with your midfield. If you lose the ball, your fullbacks are still there to just move across and defend as they would as a flat back four. If you lose the ball in the middle, you've got two men there, two players who are very good at defending, who are in that defensive midfield position and maybe win the ball back as well. That's another option which I quite like with the back four, is kind of narrowing the field a little bit and moving them players into the middle when you are attacking, when you have the ball. So you're saying to them, look, I want you to stay back and defend. I don't want you to bomb forward like you were, but I want you further up the field. So just come in front of my two centre-backs and just kind of protect that middle area. But like you said, it's...
Yeah.
Are you in a position to experiment? Maybe not at first, in the first half of a season with a new division, because it could backfire and you could find yourself 5 points adrift, and then at that point you're on the next podcast telling us what we did wrong.
That's why I always keep a shadow save that I use just to mess around tactically, just to run experiments and do some thought experiments to inform my decision making. No, it's an interesting point, I guess, because the tactic as the system that I'm using does like to compress more centrally. With the fullbacks really are a place where that's really where the width is generally coming from. But to your point, if you flip it and leave the width with the wide midfielders and potentially centralize back, do you end up with more defensive stability out of the gate? And
yeah. I think it as well. It also goes down to how many goals you're conceding, how many goals you're scoring. Like, if it's working, which you've won promotion, like, let's not tinker too much with it. I mean, Ryan, in terms of you being using a 3 at the back, what difference have you seen from that compared to the standard 4-4-2, for example? Like, how are your games going? I know obviously the quality of your players might determine that a little bit more than Colin's true role, but how is it going?
I think it does depend on obviously the player roles that you select. So I have been using a wide centre back on the right hand side, so that person will obviously then push wider, and then in the defensive midfield position, depending on the opposition that I'm playing, I'll either play like an anchor man that will sit in the gap just in case, or if I'm playing against like the likes of the Liverpools and the Man Cities and teams that I know that are going to press high, and Haaland's going to sit up front for Man City, Liverpool are going to try and make runs as much as possible, I'll change the anchor man to the halfback that will drop even further to join the defence. So then you are then creating a back 4 itself from the back 3 against teams that I know I can attack a little bit more. I'll play 2 wide centre backs, and then the central of the back 3 will either be a standard central defender or a ball playing defender that will play out to those wide centre backs, and then in front I'll have a regista and a ball winning midfielder to get it out to the wingers or the 2 attacking mids that I have in. But obviously, as you've said, the quality that I will have, I mean, I say quality, I am currently using Louis Jackson as the backup centre back, because my main centre back is Lenny Yoro, De Ligt, and Martinez. I don't really have anything beyond that apart from my youth team players that are coming through that for centre backs aren't great.
I know I've been in my Bo Vista save, I have a 3 at the back tactic I've been using, but I don't play someone in defensive midfield. I play 2 central midfielders as ball-win midfielders, both on support, to try to press up the field a little bit more. And I've been using my middle of the 3 centre-backs as a stopper. So he's always in that gap. He basically is a defensive midfielder, and you see during game action that I'm basically playing a back 2 with like you have that anchor or whatever in front. That's the role he kind of takes up when we have the ball. The only difference I've been making is when we play the bigger team, my 2 other central defenders are as just central defenders. When we have a better team, I play them as wide central defenders, because I do find even on defend, they just get that little bit further forward as a wide centre-back compared to a centre-back. But apart from that, I've been enjoying this stopper role. I feel like they get on the ball a lot more, and I've actually been using mainly defensive midfielders as our 3rd centre-back, and just because of their ability with the first touch, the passing, the vision, etc. Colin, one final thing I wanted to go to you about is fullbacks. Have you looked at defensive midfielders much to retrain in that position? I know when I was during my Egerson journey, quite a lot of my fullbacks through that whole journey started as defensive midfielders, which does make me think even more that there's an issue with fullbacks in the game.
I actually haven't thought about defensive midfielders. I was actually thinking a bit about wide center backs as being a potential option just for the defensive stability side of things. Yeah, that doesn't give me a lot of confidence. But no, I haven't looked at. Oh, and to answer one of your earlier questions, right now we're playing very much like '90s Newcastle. Like I'm going to just score more than you, and that's how we win. So we have a bit of a goal leaking problem, but we counter it with a significant goal scoring proficiency.
Well, let me say this just for
I had some
you.
things to think of.
Just for you, Colin, I'm going to say I will love it if you beat all of them. I will love it. bit of Kevin Keegan for people there, as he shouted at Sir Alex. So yeah,
you can score 3, but I'll score 4.
Yeah, let's not discuss how that season ended, though. As a Newcastle fan, I remember sitting in one of my neighbours' houses watching the games. I remember some good games back in the late 90s. Sorry, the likes of Newcastle v Leicester. What a game that was! 4-3. Oh my days. Newcastle 8, Sheffield Wednesday 1. Another great game. But that's the end of the podcast. Thank you very much, guys. We've managed to almost take it over an hour. And I actually think that tactical discussion I'm going to cut out and also make a shorter video at the weekend to just promote the podcast a little bit more. So, I've been Paul. He has been Colin. There's no picture. I'm just saying he's been Colin as if you assume who I'm looking at. The other one has been Ryan. And we have been the three stooges who have produced another episode of a podcast. Look at us, guys. We are bossing this.
Yeah, sorry, take note.
Three podcasts in, sacked by a website, and progressing well. Good job, gang. We will see you in 2 weeks' time, where we continue to just ramble on about Football Manager.